Something that caught my attention years ago was the idea of the blood type diet. And this was made popularized by the D'Adamano's books, Dr. D'Adamano. And he created a series of books all based on his blood type diet. And they were all broken down into all the different blood types and basically just create a classification of diets and specific protocols for each blood type. And I just want to say that I never really bought into those ideas completely. After studying it, I kind of realized that this was just another way of creating another diet and proposing it as a specific strategy and kind of elaborating it out to try to appeal to the most amount of people possible. And also on the tail end of that, I do want to say that the blood type idea is very interesting when you start to dive into more of the objective research behind it, because there are some very interesting similarities that do show up in specific blood types. So I think it's really valuable to understand based on what your blood type is, what variation you may be, or other people that you may be working with. It's an interesting guiding signpost. So let's dive into that for a second. There's about 16 identified blood types in the human race that we know of, and the four dominant ones are blood type O, blood type A, blood type B, and blood type AB. Those are the four most dominant ones. Blood type AB is a combination of A and B, and it represents the lowest amount of people. It's about 2% of the population, as I understand. And then blood type O is what is said to be our original blood type of the human race. Let's talk about blood type O's for a second. This tends to be the most dominant blood type in the population. And it's said that blood type O's have the strongest immune system, and they're also known to be hunter-gatherers, meaning that they need a high-protein, high-fat-based diet. And usually the way that it's prescribed in the blood type books is that they have to eat meat. That blood type O's and animal protein are synonymous together. And I'm willing to bet that everyone watching this has probably heard that at some point. And I gotta tell you, so many people have come to me over the years on the raw food thing and the vegetarian thing, and they're like, I'm blood type O. My doctor said that I need to eat meat, and if I don't eat meat, I won't build blood, and things are going to unravel and whatever. There's a lot of fear behind it. And I actually looked at that. I was like, well, okay, let's take a look at that and see what's going on there. Interesting results came out from that is that blood type O's aren't meat dependent. They're protein and fat specific in terms of their metabolic oxidation rate, their metabolism. So what that means is that blood type O's burn fat and also rely heavily on protein as a dominant source of fuel in their diet. But that doesn't mean that they rely on meat specifically. This is where it gets confusing, because those diet books tell you that that's where you get your protein and that blood type O's have to eat meat. What's interesting about that is that I can think of four prominent raw food vegan teachers that are all blood type O's. David Wolf is a blood type O. He's been a raw foodist and pretty much a vegan for over 25 years. Dr. Gabriel Cousins is a blood type O. He's been a vegan and a raw foodist for over 35 years. Dr. Brian Clement is a blood type O. Same situation, over 40 years. And my friend Lou Corona is a blood type O as well. And he's been a vegan and raw foodist for 45 or 40 plus years as well. So when I figured that out, I was like, okay, whoa, wait a minute. So there's some kind of there's something in between the lines that I'm not seeing. And what it came out to be is that those four people that I just referenced are all fat dominant metabolizers. They all need a lot of fat and protein in their diet from raw plant sources. So that's when I was like, oh, okay, Interesting. So if you have the right enzymatic function, you have the right microbiome, the right probiotic strategy, and you're absorbing and you culture and your food and you soak your nuts and seeds and you have some kind of strategy surrounding your metabolic needs, then you can do really, really well on a plant source or plant-based diet without having to go to meat as your dominant source of protein, right? And so just to further this out a little bit, this is the main distinction that I want to share with everyone here between blood type O's and specifically blood type A's. Blood type A's are considered to be the very first genetic mutation that was derived from our original blood type O source and then actually kind of migrated genetically off. That's what blood type A's are thought to be. So blood type O's actually produce the highest amount of hydrochloric acid out of any of the blood types. So when I found that out, I was like, oh, no wonder. Because hydrochloric acid is a firewall behind or between parasites, bacteria, microbes, viruses, all the pathogens that invade our system and cause immunological compromise. That's why blood type O's have the strongest immune system out the gate, because they have the highest amount of hydrochloric acid and they can get away with the most amount of frivolous eating habits in our omnivorous culture. It's like, okay, so they're actually burning up all the food. They're incinerating their food a lot quicker than and their blood is a lot thinner naturally. Their blood doesn't thicken up the same way that a blood type A's blood thickens up. And this is the great distinction to make, is because if you're a blood type A, the research is conclusive that if you eat heavy amount of meat, your lifespan probability drops dramatically. I heard a statistic that blood type A's, if they eat a lot of meat in their diet, they have the probability is that they're actually going to lose about 25 years in their longevity, in their lifespan. I heard that statistic a number of years ago, actually, and then did the research and found out, oh, interesting, blood type A's naturally have a thickened state of their blood chemistry. Their blood is thick out the gate, unlike a blood type O's who has thin blood, so they're able to transport oxygen and nutrients a lot quicker. They're not as diabetic. What's the word I'm looking for? Predictable, I guess is the best way to say it, because blood sugar issues have a lot to do with coagulated blood and a thickening, and your blood platelets fuse together and create that thick blood that we don't want, right? And so blood type A's actually need to be on a plant-based diet almost entirely, if not entirely, for these reasons, for their immune system, for the state of their blood chemistry, and that's just their metabolic proclivity. That's just where their metabolism is at. So that to me is a really important distinction to just understand, right? Just to have a little framework as it's helping act as like a GPS for your dietary navigational needs. Now, I want to share one excerpt from my book, and it's actually a referencing from another book. I mentioned all those Diadomino's books. It's almost like blood type astrology, a lot of people say. And a lot of those books are the reason why people don't believe in the blood type theory, because a lot of it doesn't really make sense. And a lot of it is just trying to sell you a diet, really. But there was a book that actually woke me up, and it's based 100% on research, right? Objective research. And it's called Your Answer, or the answer is in your blood type. And so I'm going to read just a quick excerpt from that I mentioned in my book on the section on blood type theory. So here we go. At the dawn of man, it is presumed that the original blood type was O, and that meat was the primary source of protein. But because of migration to different regions and environments, man had to adjust accordingly. Just as animals have adapted to survive, so has man. Through adaptation, the development of other three blood types emerged. the hunters adapted to vegetarian or A type. When raw food sources became available again, man adapted, resulting in the B and the AB blood types. And that comes out of The Answer Is in Your Blood Type by Stephen Weisberg and Joseph Cristiano. Really good book to check out if you're interested in this information. And there's a lot of richness here that I could easily elaborate on, but we'll stick to the subject matter here. Blood type O's are dominantly fat and protein burning metabolism, and so if you can understand that, then you can source out those foods accordingly. And blood type A's are probably going to be a little more carbohydrate dominant. So when we talk about fast and slow oxidizers, this framework actually fits in pretty snug. So there you go. That's my take on the blood type theory.